So here's a question, but the thoughts are not in language. Thoughts are images, sounds, feelings, touch, smells, taste. They're not language. So what we do is, when we learn a language as a child, when we learn a language, you learn to associate specific sounds to specific mental images. Specific sounds to sounds which are non-word sounds like music. Specific sounds to feelings. The word love is a sound which is associated with a feeling that we generally consider as love. That's what language is. Inherently, language is nothing but a series of associations. A series of associations, whatever is an association, in NLP we call that as a distortion. Anything which is associated, it means these two are linked. It is linked only because we have learned to link it. Universe has not linked it. When you look at this thing and you call it a chair, the sound of the word chair is linked to this physical object and the images that we construct in our mind for that. But it is chair only because someone in English language chose to link it to this, the word chair to this, not because that's how universe created it. We have learned to link it. A distortion is nothing but something that we have learned to associate, learned to link. The process of learning is through the process of association. Anything that you learn, you will always learn by associating something with something. That's how all learning happens. Which means the word distortion by itself, you could very well replace it with the word learning. However, distortion is a specific terminology in the field of NLP. It is a jargon word. As part of the training, I need to teach you some of the jargons also. Personally, to me, the jargons are meaningless if you don't know how to make use of the concepts. And once you are able to make use of the concepts, jargons are not needed anyways. So either which ways, jargons are useless. But for the purpose of the training, at various points of time, I am going to use some of these words which are jargon words. And just because I don't want to go back and explain the whole thing again, hence it's better for you to know what the jargon means. It facilitates communicating with you and imparting the knowledge that I have to you. That's why, for the purpose of the training, jargons are useful only for that purpose. So we have this object and we call it a chair. When you are speaking to someone, you are communicating your thoughts to that person. What you are doing is you are translating your visual images into specific sounds. You are translating certain sounds, like the sound of a flute, into words, which is another sound. Certain feelings you are translating into words, which is you are translating it to sound. And likewise for smell and taste. Your listener does not know what your visual image is, does not know what is the sound that you have in your mind, does not know what is the feeling you have in your mind. They hear the words that you spoke. They hear the words that you spoke. But guess what? that person also knows the English language. So, you know English language in this classroom. I use the word chair. You listen to the sound of the word chair. What do? You create, or rather you access a mental image of a chair in your mind, and that's how you understand what I said. Which means this is a two-way process. Now this is where the power of Neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, comes in. Because the implication of this, and I want you to really introspect on the implication of this. The implication of this is that every time you speak something to someone and your listener has heard you and your listener has understood you, the only way that person can understand what you said is by activating their internal images, sounds, feelings, smells, and taste. If I speak in a language like Chinese and you don't know Chinese, you won't understand. I speak English, you do understand. The only way you understand is because you are accessing corresponding mental images or sounds or feelings, or which means just by the very act of speaking, you are getting someone to have a particular thought. They may not accept your thought, but for them to reject your thought, they have to have the thought first and then reject it. There is no way they can reject your thought without first having that thought in their mind. This is where the power of influence comes in, because every word you speak is already influencing someone. There is no way to not influence someone. If they have understood you, you have influenced them. Period. The second part of it, which brings out the power of NLP, is to recognize something in human communication, which is a physical object that we see as chair. I use the word chair. You access a mental image of your own for the word chair. Since it exists in the physical world, chances are that my mental image of chair and your mental image of chair, there will be definitely a lot of resemblance. We will not disagree with our mental images if those were to be printed out. But what happens when you speak words which are not existing in the physical material world? Words like honesty, freedom, knowledge, pride, ego, love, satisfaction. Now all of these words do not have physical existence. But on the face of it, we seem to understand what was said. But behind the scene, my mental images of this are likely to be radically different from all of your mental images about it. So given that, it is actually a miracle that we can even have decent level of communication and understanding with each other, given this nuance of language. Any understanding that we achieve in the usage of these words is definitely not based on whether we have the same understanding of the word. My understanding could be radically different from yours, but then we still understand. So how is it possible? That's where it goes back to beliefs, values, and habits. the beliefs that you operate from, the values that you operate from, the habits that you operate from, that and my beliefs, my values and my habits, if they are aligned, then we will have understanding on that particular topic. If they are not aligned, we will never be able to have any understanding. We will have a lot of disagreements, we will have a lot of conflict. How does all of this become useful? All of this becomes useful. First, it helps us to recognize the differences in our own understanding. It gives us a model by which we can explore the differences in each other's understanding. And second, through the power of words, we can begin to change people's thoughts. If you can get them to have a thought, you can get them to have that thought repeatedly. You get them to have that thought repeatedly, you can get them to form a new habit. You can get them to change their beliefs. You can get them to change their values. That's what we are headed to eventually in the field of NLP at master practitioner level. There's a lot of fun stuff that you're going to learn during this training. There's more that happens at master practitioner as well. Master practitioner, we delve in depth only into beliefs and values. First 2 days are dedicated to language patterns, but language patterns are just a way to building up towards beliefs, because we are dealing with beliefs during language patterns. Then 1 day is dedicated to a topic called advanced submodalities. Again, we are actually dealing with beliefs only over there. Then 1 full day is for beliefs and 1 full day is for values. So 5 days are dedicated to the topic of values and beliefs. 2 days directly and 3 days indirectly. During practitioner, what's going to happen is the first 3 days of your training, 2.5 to 3 days of your training, we are going to cover a lot of foundational concepts. While we are covering all those foundational concepts, what is going to happen is you are going to learn many different ways of thinking. Just by the nature of learning different ways of thinking, there is going to be a lot of shake-up happening of your own old thinking styles. So I like to describe it as if that it's a complete breaking down of your old thinking styles. After that, the topics that we learn, they are meant to reintegrate all of your thinking styles to create a new style of its own. So it's like rebuilding. That's how you're going to experience this training. During the first 3 days, there will be plenty of homework for you, at least 1 more hour after the end of the classroom training. So you'll have to do that. And then you have to do that the same night, same evening, come back, next day morning, we will debrief. What do I mean by debrief is, you will share your experiences of the homework. There are any questions, we will answer those questions. Then we'll start with the next day's training.